Now be recorded.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, so I guess we could go ahead and do introductions because that's customary. You all know me. I'm Margie.
There we go.
Introductions.
Ken McCammon, Friends of Downtown.
You all know me. I'm Margie.
Ken McCammon, Friends of Downtown. There we go.
Introductions.
Ken McCammon, Friends of Downtown.
You all know me. I'm Margie.
Mariano Garcia, new to the committee this year.
Tara Grillos, Purdue University.
Garcia, new to the committee this year.
Tara Grillos, Purdue University.
Garcia, new to the committee this year.
If someone has the YouTube live stream going, we're actually picking up that audio in the delay.
Garcia, new to the committee this year.
Jeremy Grunard, city engineer.
I think we lost. No, we didn't lose Margie. She's there. Sorry. We have Matt Bushy on the line. Matt, you're muted.
Intentionally. I have puppies in the background driving me crazy. So
So we got all of our introductions. So looking at the agenda, we've got, we asked Ken McCammon to come and talk to us. Our meeting got canceled last month, so he wasn't able to make it. But previously we had talked about perhaps there were some opportunities to work with Ken and the Moseys. I know there was some talk, especially interested, like in maybe possible bike race sort of thing. So we asked Ken to come and talk and see if he has some ideas or suggestions. And so
we had talked about, well, Susan Schechter and I had talked last year about the possibility of doing a bike parade to open up a Mosey like we do with the Drum and Fife Corps and the I can't think of who they are. The Shriners with their little cars. Traditionally, we've not allowed bicycles at the Mosey because we had a lot of issues with kids riding in and out of alleys and streets and almost running people over. And we thought also about using the parking lot across the street where the new building is going to go in. And then we talked one night at Kirby's about a bicycle race going on someplace downtown. Now, of course, the Moseys have been canceled through June. I would not be surprised if the July Mosey is canceled as well. We'll just have to see what happens. But certainly any of those ideas could be talked about. We have 3 adult tricycles, which we used to put a donation box on and ride up and down the streets, but that was prior to the time we started attracting 6,000 to 8,000 people. Now you can't even think about doing that. And so, I mean, I'm open to any discussion, but I don't really have any fixed ideas.
well, couple things that I had thought about was, because we're interested in bicycle education. And I know Bicycle Lafayette has put on bike rodeos before. And I always thought that parking lot across from LBC would be perfect for that because it's the shape of a racetrack. I mean, so that might be something fun to do because it's educational. Groups, bike groups who don't participate as vendors at the Mosey could possibly have information out, like bike polo and racing teams and, things like that. But it would be a lot of the health fairs that I've been part of the past couple years with educational material through Bike Walk Greater Lafayette are all being canceled. So
Right.
yeah, we're not having that opportunity to get information out.
Well, if any of these groups wanted to have a booth, we would do whatever we could to get people a space. We have no idea what's coming down the pike. If we're going to have tents next to each other, if we're going to have half the vendors, it's all up in the air. But if Bicycle Lafayette or anyone else would like to have a table, it would not cost anything. We would provide the space for free.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind talking to Susan Schechter and see if they still have their bike rodeo materials, if they're interested in doing that. I see Mark Wilson has joined us.
Now, I just had a quick question. Speaking of the Mosey and education, and I don't know about the viability of it, but if it was possible to incorporate some sort of like road safety element, almost like kind of like an obstacle course, but the obstacle course would be essentially what a bike lane would look like. The ins and outs of a bike lane, through what that looks like in Lafayette, and to try to incorporate some sort of like, I don't want to say obstacle course, but just like a zigzag thing, where kids can ride in it and navigate the turns how they would be in a bike lane, present on a typical city street.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I don't know. We might be able to pull that off in a couple locations, but they would not be real close to the Mosey. Of course, the parking lot across from the brewing company is the obvious choice, but again, it's owned by the Valley Lakes or Valley whatever health services. I don't know how they would feel about it. They do have new management, which is far better than the old people in terms of cooperation, but that's something we could pursue for sure. I don't know how we'd set it up though. Maybe duct tape or something.
Yeah, I'd be willing to, if Bike Lafayette wanted to do it, I'd be willing to help them, so that we could probably get some volunteers to do it. I would hope that, especially with the approvals that project and the parking lot's going through right now, that they might be open to the idea of being a good neighbor. And letting us do an education piece. But yeah, I think the rodeo, not just the stopping and starting stuff that Bike Lafayette has traditionally done, but I mean, that parking lot's big enough that they could kind of practice that bike lane element as well.
There's also some issues about the setup for the Mosey. we've been told that the July Mosey will not have a stage at 11th Street because of the sewer project on 10th, but they're already on Main Street. They're a month at least ahead of schedule, so we'll see what happens in another 6 weeks. And then they're going to tear up 8th Street between Main and Columbia to reroute the Pearl River sewage line. And we have absolutely no idea how that's going to affect the spacing and all that stuff that we have. So, but we'll deal with it any way we can, and we'll work with you guys, come up with the best plan.
David had a good point. He said, because I know Christopher Santos is especially interested in the bike race aspect. And if the bike race was held on Sunday after a Mosey, the porta potties would still be there. You know, so that would be a plus if we did that. And the street, you know, the things to block the streets are already there. So it would make putting on the race easier. It's been a really long time, but there have been criteriums. I think we talked about that already downtown.
Right.
That went over. The only problem with Sunday is just making sure that you've got good communication with the churches, because they're concerned about their congregants getting run over and not being able to cross the street.
Yeah, and there's another effort by the chamber to work with us to kind of jumpstart downtown businesses. And their idea is the Friday before and the Sunday after a Mosey to make a big deal of people coming downtown and shopping. And that the details of that are not worked out. We're just in the preliminary stages talking about it. But that would potentially attract more people down for the race. You know, it could be a win-win thing. So I think, you know, it's a great idea. Sunday would be a good day for it. And we can probably avoid most of the churches in the route. I don't know how long a race it would be or what the route would be, but
Are there any considerations as far as maybe making it more inclusive if we don't have the racing mentality, to make it more of like a bike tour of Lafayette as opposed to maybe a bike race of Lafayette? I don't know what would attract more people, but in my mind, if it were a tour, you know, maybe more families would be involved as opposed to individuals. But
maybe both of them, different dates, you know.
I know WRCC leads some tours. Gary and Rick McInnes and Gary Bouillard live downtown, and Gary has hosted and led like architecture tours downtown, you know, which are fun. I don't know what other kind of tours they might have, but yeah, something that was family friendly and took advantage of trails, you know, started at a park and was completely on a trail and ended, you know, like a loop, could be fun. So I think that would be, yeah, if it was bike tours, I would look to WRCC as a partner. So, David, can you not unmute yourself, or you'd rather chat? Oh, and you said something about a bike corral. There, I just looked at it today. There's a bike rack on 10th Street, right there at the corner by the new wine bistro where Merlin's used to be. And that needs to be moved, and it belongs to the city. And it's just, a black metal rack with ribs that you can park a bike. I'm wondering if maybe that's something that we could look at as, if it's not too hard to move around, maybe that's something that can be brought to events like the road closure signs and have a place for bikes to park. Especially if there's gates into the event. Now the Mosey is different because it's open, but we could put it someplace and have people use that.
I imagine it's about to be moved because of the construction that's going on there.
Yeah, I went down and looked at it. They were asking me, Margie, what do you want to do with the bike rack? So it's 18 feet long. It does come apart into 2 9-foot long sections. Yeah, and it doesn't have a home because it's not going to go back there. So if there was a way to make it maybe a little more mobile friendly, maybe I'll talk to Nick and Jason about that, because I think that would be a nice thing to have. Promote riding your bike and give people a place to park. Any other ideas? Ken, what about trike races?
Well, we were working on it until this stuff happened.
I was gonna say, are you out of the trike racing business? I always thought that was fun.
It was always fun. We didn't do it last year because of just bad weather, all sorts of things. And we talked about bringing it up again this year, but then the pandemic hit, and we still have the trikes. They were a good investment, and we'll just see. Maybe we'll do one in the fall, but this really sucks.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it exactly falls in line with, how to ride the road and how to share the road if you're a cyclist, but it is fun. And if it gets people's attention and they come over to booths where there is information about safety and clubs and events, it could be a good hook. I don't know.
I see Dave's chat about the bike rack being up where the bus turnaround was supposed to be at 11th Street. I was thinking the very same thing. They have, or had, I don't know if it's still there, there was a bike rental or whatever it was, rack up there last year.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if it's still there, but that would be a good place, adjacent to the Mosey, but not too far away, where people could lock their bike up and walk across the street and they're in the Mosey. Oh, I see Dave just said bike share is there, but there's probably room for it.
Yeah, but if it was set up, like a temporary rack for additional people, and try and encourage people to ride their bikes and park them and not take them inside. Well, and if you kick somebody out because they're not supposed to be in there, you can tell them, we've got a rack set up just for you up the street. You can go
Yeah.
lock your bike there
And I agree with Dave that you probably would want somebody to man the station to make sure there wasn't vandalism or anything like that.
Yeah.
Then again, maybe we could do it in front of Virtuous also.
it's true.
Though 10th Street being under construction creates a problem in the short term.
And Jeremy, I called in late, but you were at the update meeting for Main Street, the phase 3, and they were talking about those different events, and that, like on Friday, don't just, dust your hands off and walk away, that things need to be buttoned up because if there was a mosey the next day. Remember them talking about that?
Yeah, I don't have many more details than that, though. They were just made aware that there were events that are occurring, and they've been given kind of a list of those and dates and everything, including the moseys, and they know that the June one is not happening. But they were supposed to knock off early, I think, on Fridays to clean everything up and make sure it's still very pedestrian friendly through there. And I was going to say too, if there's anything we want to do that requires, if we're trying to do education and we're trying to do some, and we need like small signs or something, our traffic guys could maybe help with that. I'm not 100% committing them, but I think that's something that we've done before when I was a consultant, and we were designing roundabouts. Is we'd have we mowed one into the grass somewhere, and we used spray paint to do all the pavement markings, and we had signs made up that were half scale, and so it was totally a half scale roundabout there. And then we got golf carts out and let people drive it. And if you wanted to do something along those lines, we could probably help out with the signage and possibly the markings as well. Of course, if we put down markings, we want to make sure it's somewhere where nobody's going to get upset. The tape is very expensive. Even the temporary pavement marking tape is terribly expensive. That's why you don't see a whole lot of it used.
Could you use chalk? Or that's not?
Yeah. Or there's even kind of spray paint type of chalk too that comes off as soon as it rains a couple times. That could be doable.
You just reminded me that we need to paint the numbers for the vendor booths. Thanks for doing that.
Our guys help with that, right?
Well, they painted them on the street 2 years ago, but the paint was gone last year. So we had to do it for each mosey, and we just used chalk and went down and wrote the numbers. And it only takes 2 or 3 people half an hour to do, but if it rains, then you're kind of screwed.
I was thinking there were some on the curb, or
There were, but the paint, whatever paint they used, it didn't stick.
it just came right off. Wow. Okay.
Okay, guys. Well, that's all I have to offer tonight. You all know how to get a hold of me. If you have any ideas you want to run by me, feel free. I see Margie or talk to Margie about 4 times a week. So,
I thought you were going to say 4 times a day.
sometimes. So I'm gonna depart and let you guys proceed with the rest of the business. Unless anybody Anybody has any questions?
I don't have any.
All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're at our 2-minute pitch idea and one question or comment afterwards. So I can go through in the order that you are in the picture lineup if you want to give your 2-minute pitch. We ready to do that? Okay, I'm gonna make you put it in chat, David, or sign language. Karen, you're the first one up.
Cut out for a second, but I think you said me, right? Yeah, something I've been thinking about is just that, I mean, obviously it's great to keep expanding the options of what we have, but I think there are a lot of trails that already exist that, you know, me going on my 3rd year living here, I'm just finding out about it now. And I know the information's out there somewhere, but I think it could be, I don't know, I think we could probably do a better job of promoting the trails that already exist to help people kind of get motivated to get out there and start to build a critical mass of cyclists, especially like the ones that are within town. You don't need a car to get there in the first place. So I don't know, that's just something I was thinking about. If we had funding to like print fun maps and distribute them or something like that, that would be cool. I know that costs a lot of money, but you know, maybe it's just something of like using social media to direct people to existing websites or things that are out there. I don't know, so just throwing that out there.
So David, you're going to pass, is that right? Although you've been adding your comments and we've been reading them. So is there anything that you would put in your 2 minutes that you haven't kind of tossed out there? Because I thought they were good comments. So let's see. So I don't know. Rob, do you have anything you want to say about bikes? Well, Jeremy, you're next.
I always. What's that?
Oh, you're next. I don't know if you've been to any of the meetings. David had suggested like we go around the table and everybody have a 2-minute pitch, like if there's something that you're thinking about or a problem that you've noticed or, you know, some news that you want to pass on. You've got the floor.
I'm not thinking of anything right at the moment.
Okay, Mariano, I guess you're up.
I did get a question from David. He's asking about Twickenham. Twickenham is moving along very quickly, which is good news. We only had 4 rain days in April. Typical, it's built into their schedule to have up to 18 rain days in April. So they got ahead by 2 to 3 weeks there. So they're making really good progress. As far as being finished, I think that they're still looking at like September or October to be complete. But those 3 lanes that they're working on right now, they're getting ready to pave those. They're getting ready to start paving here this week or next week. So it is really moving along quickly. So if you drive through there, you'll see that it's the eastbound lanes that they've taken out 3 lanes. They left 1 lane westbound available for traffic. which is really, really rough right now because of all the traffic being concentrated on it. So we're trying to patch potholes as they creep up. But the eastbound traffic, though, or the eastbound lanes, they've installed all the storm sewer. They've cut to grade where the trail is going to go, so you can kind of see where the trail is going to be by driving through there. Anyway, it's pretty exciting how quick it's coming along.
Okay, Mariano?
Yeah, I guess I don't have anything specifically that I've thought about. Piggybacking on what Tara had said, there are a lot of trails and bike paths that I'm trying to figure out as well. One thing that I keep thinking about is, I spend a lot of time walking across the pedestrian bridge between Lafayette and West Lafayette. And I wish there was some sort of bike path or bike way to kind of lead bike traffic from the bridge into town or onto some other bike lanes or bike paths. I know it seems like they're going to be finishing up that boardwalk thing on the river very quickly here. Yeah, I don't know if we could somehow, and I don't even know if that boardwalk is going to be a bike path per se, but it'd be kind of neat to have some sort of connection to some other bike paths and bike trails and bike ways from that kind of central focal point that people enter Lafayette from, pedestrians enter Lafayette from.
Margie, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. I know that the promenade is it's very close to being complete, and there's a ramp available there that gets you down to 2nd Street. But then I get what you're saying. Once you get to 2nd Street, there's nothing. It doesn't really go to anything at this point, other than, I mean, it goes to downtown and it's a low-speed environment. But there's not marked bike lanes or sharrows or anything. It's just kind of leaves you in downtown. I know going out of downtown to the north, if you take like 4th Street, it turns into Fannin Drive. That has bike lanes, but those only go to 9th Street. Well, no, do they turn on 9th Street and go and connect to the trail there? I don't remember. I think maybe they end right there at Greenbush, and then there's a short stretch there, but then there's trail once you get further out on North 9th Street there. So that's a good point. I know we're looking too at 3rd and 4th Street and how to accommodate bicyclists with 3rd and 4th Street. So that's, once something is put in place there, connecting from the bridge over to 3rd and 4th Street would be really important.
I know in the bike master plan, it shows a bike path from downtown that goes south into the Wabash Avenue neighborhood. But I've never been completely sure where that trail is. I mean, does it go under the elevated bridges, or, I mean, it's because it can't cross the railroad tracks. Is it like along? I just don't know where. I've seen where it is, like once it's down in Wabash Avenue, but any drawings I've seen, it stops like before you even get to the Social Security office. So like there north, I'm not sure exactly where it is that the path line is.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'll have to look into that.
And is that rec planning and paying for it, or is that something that they've shown in their plans and it would be up to the city to decide when there's money to put that in?
Again, I'm not sure, but we can talk to Stan about that.
Yeah, I guess that's the second half of the question.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Mariano?
I did not. No, that was it.
Okay. Matt, I guess you're next up.
Thank you. I will just say that Prophetstown State Park is a gift to our community. So those that have not been there, I would encourage you. If you haven't, please do it. I'm out there almost 2 or 3 times a week. So, and I guess it goes back to the beginning. I think the whole biking thing. It's kind of like I think it's you have people bike for 2 reasons that I see. One for they want a destination. They're going somewhere. There's some end place in mind. And it's within our, until we have things connected, like getting to a place like Prophetstown, that full connection. I think it'll be somewhat of a challenge to get people to, be willing to do those things. I will share our family. We took 2 families and 10 kids on the last day of school on Friday. We all biked from Benton Woods to downtown to the McCord's Candy Shop, and it was very nice to have the bike lanes along Elmwood Avenue. It was a little dicey in a few places, but it was nice to have the bike lanes along Elmwood and then Union on the way back. So that we were very appreciative to have that with the volume of people we had.
And where did you say you started?
Benton Woods.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. So, what was I going to say about the path to Prophetstown? Jeremy, is there any update on the state funding and the trail planning that we talked about, a couple of years ago between West Lafayette, and the county, getting from West Lafayette into Lafayette and then north to the park?
Yeah, that was for the Next Level Trails grant that we submitted an application. We submitted it twice. Both we did not get the grant both times. But what that would have done is allowed us to make a connection from the Sagamore Parkway Bridge down to Wabash Heritage Trail. And then it also would have continued from the Sagamore Parkway Bridge along Sagamore Parkway, crossed Duncan Road, and then teed into the trail that's already there on North 9th Street. And then it would have taken the North 9th Street, the first application would have taken where the trail ends there on North 9th Street and taken it out to the city limits. And then the county was going to put together an application to take it from there out toward Prophetstown State Park. I know that they're continuing to work on that. The county is. I think that they may have already even hired a consultant to do some of the design work on it already. So I don't know if they're trying to get a grant to do that work, or if they've just decided to fund it or even just maybe fund just the design right now until they have the funding available for construction. But I do know that's moving along. That's the toughest piece, because that is a narrow road and it's steep embankments down on both sides. And there's even a couple houses along there that are right up against the road. So they would have right-of-way acquisition. I'm not sure how they're planning on cantilevering out that trail piece, but I do think it's encouraging that they're moving on it. Last I heard.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
Yeah, maybe I can check with Tracy on that, because I know Marcus applied for a grant through the Indiana State Department of Health for that high-level trail planning, and it included the county. So both cities and the county were each going to put in $10,000. I think the grant was for 20, and to see if we could look at the trails that are coming up to Tippecanoe County from the south, and just look at what happens when they get to Tippecanoe County, and then where do they go, and what happens when it gets to the city limits, and then how does it get through town and over to West Lafayette and then out the other side. And that all came along when we were talking about the US bike route. And I had mentioned that to Tracy just a few days ago, because we were talking about something else and checking to see if the county was interested and was going to participate in that grant and put money in. And I mean, he wrote back and he was excited. He said he's been on his bike riding like 2 and 3 or more times a week since, the whole work from home order. And he said he is just now discovering all these great trails that are around, which made me think of what Tara was saying. They're here, and even people who live here don't know about them. It could be, as starting out, it could be as simple as letting everybody know what we have. And then you've got, again, Tara was saying, that critical mass. You've got people that are using them. You need more, and it's easier to, justify the planning cost and construction of more trails when you actually have people on them. So, I was encouraged to hear that come from Tracy. So, I'll be happy to check with him and see what he can tell me about their plans on North 9th Street. Did you have anything else, Matt?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mark, you're up. I don't know. Mark, are you there? You're muted if you are. I don't know. I'm not hearing anything from Mark. All right. Well, I guess we can go on. Old business. And I know we've talked about subcommittee topics. Part of that is, figuring out what different people's interests are, and if there's a subcommittee that they're interested in working on and helping lead. It works better that way than, me coming up with a list and making assignments, because nobody likes to work on stuff that they're not personally interested in. And I know, last time, and I've gotten busy, I'm sorry. I know I sent some of the city code drafts, things that that Tara and I had marked up to the city attorney, you know, like, what are the next steps? What would you recommend? I think David even said, do you start from scratch, you know, or is there enough in the code that you can make changes? Marking it up is like the most markings were things that did not even apply anymore, like the way they license bikes. You know, there's no point in having all that language in there if it's, you know, not even used. So, but yeah, maybe talking about subcommittees, it would be easier if we did that when we were all together. Let's see, next is the 2020 meetings, discussions. And so the bike-friendly business and bike-friendly community, that's been arranged. Andrew Antonio is going to have a press conference, and it's let me get my calendar. It's in June. June the 25th, that's a Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they'll announce all the new bike-friendly businesses that were recognized by LAB, and yeah, let's see. And then, oh, I actually have it down there. Yeah, I've got the date and the time. So that's when it is. Bike to Work Day, of course, they canceled that and rescheduled it for September. So we're hoping that maybe by September we can go ahead and have that in some form or fashion. Maybe it will be more spread out, but at least, yeah, we can meet on the bridge, read the proclamation. Bike Month is still May, and the proclamation that we had to be read on the bridge, Bike to Work Day, went ahead and had that printed up. The two mayors and county commissioner signed it, and so they are each reading it at county commissioner meeting or board of works meeting. And Tony read that last week, I believe, and the county commissioners did that, I believe, maybe on Monday of this week. And I'm not sure if West Lafayette's read theirs yet or not. So as we get closer to Bike to Work Day, we'll, you know, bring that up again. We've got a number of corporate sponsors, so we can, all those plans are still in place. We have not had a meeting for a while since Bike to Work Day was canceled, but I know we were talking about a bike happy hour. So I don't know if that's, you know, if we're going to do that some separate time as an event. You know, maybe it could be like a tour, like Mariano was saying, just have a bike ride and have some fun. Or if we would still tie it to Bike to Work Day and have an event after work, which is a good idea. It was recommended for people who could not come first thing in the morning. Let's see. So those are all the updates I know about league stuff. I don't know if anybody has, I ask this question almost every time, if anybody has any ideas for presentations. I did not hear back from NDOT, but I've got that contact person in Crawfordsville just to come and, you know, kind of explain NDOT 101, unless Jeremy wants to do that, just to talk about planning, you know.
Who was that you were talking to?
Gosh, it was somebody that Doug recommended. I talked to him, and his response was, well, I don't know that I'm the best person to talk about this. Like, it might be better if we had someone from the central office come, but I wasn't sure if someone from the central office would want to come up on a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock and talk to a group about state federal funding. I don't know. What do you think?
So the topic we want them to talk about is federal funding for projects, or what's the topic we want them to?
Well, I guess it's just, to help the group understand federal funding. It's like the difference between a project that has federal aid in it and one that the city is just paying for. Like what's the difference between those in the planning and the cost and, how quickly they happen. Certainly what's going on Teal Road is an education in itself about funding and planning and execution. More, basic information, but then an opportunity for the committee members to ask questions.
Yeah, I'm sure we can figure out somebody who would be really good for that. I'm surprised Doug didn't take the opportunity because he's very well versed in those type of things.
I mean, initially I asked him if he would do it, and he was, well, you should have NDOT come. So, I mean, maybe if this person from Crawfordsville, certainly it's closer for him to come. If Doug has confidence in him, maybe if he and Doug did it together, that would work. I can reach out to Doug again and ask him about that.
Okay, yeah, and I can help as well.
Okay. Then I don't know, is any other ideas or suggestions? David's got something on a different issue. At the end of the trail at Mary Lou Donuts, I know the state dictates the construction. A trail up Poland Hill Road would connect to Beck Lane and then Twickenham, as well as the railroad trails. So I know, Jeremy, before you'd said once NDOT is out of there are things that you're interested in doing because they weren't. I don't know if that would fall in that category.
Yeah, I know once their project is finished, we're going to make that sidewalk connection from where we left off to where their at least their sidewalk down at the intersection is. But then we could look at that. Poland Hill Road's a challenge getting up that hill, even from an automobile standpoint right now. So, I mean, it's in really bad shape. We know it. We're just trying to figure out what is the NDOT project going to do to that particular approach and then take it from there. So, my guess is, and looking into the future, back at the 90-degree bends there on Poland Hill Road, you'll notice that the houses kind of stepped back from the 90-degree bend, and that was on purpose. Those were platted so that we could straighten that curve out in the future. But that's a really costly project. It'll be crossing the railroad tracks. It'll be going through that ravine there. It's not something we have funding for probably in the next 5 years, but it is definitely being considered. As far as getting bikes up Poland Hill Road, though, if there's something we could do that was low cost and quicker, we'd definitely entertain that. But as far as trying to build like a bike lanes and everything up the hill, I don't know if that's going to happen real soon.
I mean, personally, as a cyclist, if I was needing to get, somewhere from the north to the south, I would probably skip 4th Street if I was going beyond Teal and take 9th Street and get to Beck that way, and then over to whatever. If I was trying to get to Romney Road, for example, and 9th Street does seem like that would be another good road to study, like what you're doing on 4th Street, because there's definitely parking there, but very, very few people use it until you get pretty well past the country club, so there are areas between like Kossuth and say Central where people park fairly regularly, but the rest of it, they don't. And there's just a bike lane on that one side of the road by the country club. I mean, that seems like it would be something good to look at, and maybe an easy win that just needs paint. So that was my 10-minute spiel, or my 2-minute spiel. Does anybody else have ideas, like presentations that you'd like to see, information, that you'd like to have?
Yeah, I had just sent a message on the chat there, but I had recently been out to a property on Wildcat Creek that was managed by the Niches or Nix. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but the Nix Land Trust folks, and sounds like they have partnerships with like Subaru and things like that. Is that more for like parks and not necessarily bike paths and things like that?
Most of their properties are protected areas, nature preserves, more for walking. There's one right next to where I live, just on the other side of the ravine. There are paths through the woods across the road. When the property belonged to my husband and I, because he was interested in mountain bike riding, he and a friend were making some trails through there. But once Niches, since we sold it to Niches, it's just, it's natural. Nobody's ever over there with bicycles. I see them, I can see bike tracks where people, come to Black Rock and want to go up on top of the hill, and you'll see where somebody tried to ride up the really steep path to the top of the hill. But other than that,
I think specifically, like, I was maybe thinking about, and it might be a stretch, but like funding for a bike route to their properties, maybe.
Well, I mean, I think it would certainly be of interest to them. I mean, if they certainly have maps that show where their properties are. It's like the sharing gardens that we had. We got information about where are the bus routes to help people to get to the gardens. So maybe Niches would be happy to have help from bike groups, or if we wanted to help them to have a map that shows, and here's the best bike routes to get to these places, because they are really nice. I don't know. Any other ideas in subcommittees? Again, subcommittees, I'm just going to kind of pass on that one, because I still really do feel like that would be easier to talk about if we just devoted, like a meeting to it, and came up with some that we thought that we could, accomplish, like in a next year, and assign people who are interested in, heading up those committees. So unless somebody has questions or wants to say something about those, I can kind of give a report, and probably ask Jeremy to chime in and help at any point too, because quite a number of things have been happening that are going to impact bicycles. The first one, of course, is the 4th Street striping plan, and we did have an opportunity to look at that. I know there's been an updated version of that since, and they gave a presentation. They didn't ask for a vote, but they gave a presentation to the parking commission so that they could see what was being recommended and get their input, because the parking commission will be the ones who remove the parking from the street in order for the bike lanes to go where they're being shown. And I think, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, are they going to the July Parking Commission meeting?
Yeah, we're hoping that's the last meeting, and then we would implement the pavement markings right after that meeting.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
In between now and then is reaching out to the business owners along there to get input and letting them know that it's going to be at the July meeting.
Okay. And then the other ongoing project is the 3rd Street, 4th Street, two-way study, converting those each to from one ways to two-way. And I know I missed the last meeting. They are, in fact, I think it went out just this evening. Invitation to meeting for businesses who are along the route to provide input on, what they would like to see, any problems that they're having, any needs that they have, just to get their input on it. So, and I don't know, Jeremy, when do they expect to have that study wrapped up?
I don't have an exact date, but it's within the next couple months.
So, I mean, there would be enough time, because I know they came, I don't know, maybe, I think maybe I invited members to come to that, but it was like very last minute. They might have been able to tune in. I'm not sure anybody else did. There was an opportunity, for them to show what they're doing to the Bike Head Committee, or there would be a public meeting. Bike Head Committee would join. So I don't know how many more meetings they're planning on having.
It's my understanding that they're going to have one more public meeting after the business meetings.
Okay, well, maybe what I can do, when I find out when that is, I can let everybody on the committee know, and you can just, tune into the public meeting. I mean, you can certainly identify yourself as part of the, the Bike Ped Advisory Committee if you want to, provide input based on that. And I think, that's, unless, is there anything else is going on, Jeremy? Those are the only projects I can think of that are specific to biking and walking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're continuing to try to press forward on Park East Boulevard, but we ran into a little bit of a glitch today, and I don't know what impact it's going to have on the schedule or the project. So, Park East Boulevard being that piece from that will connect Haggerty to State Road 38 and put a new signal at State Road 38, which will have a piece of trail along it. Obviously, it won't be connected at this point, but we would be continuing that forward or north to McCarty in the not too distant future. And that would also have a trail component that would connect up all the way to the trail that goes by Walmart. And then we've been looking too at how do we get connection from there across South Street and through the neighborhoods, because then you could get all the way up to Greenbush and over to Munger Park, those areas. So, but that small project, it's a federal aid project, and we were just given some news today that they were not approving our environmental document because they didn't feel like it was I forget the terminology they used. They didn't feel like it was an independent project to the one to the north of it, and they wanted to see a full environmental document for both Park East Boulevard projects. So we're trying to figure out how we can either do that or proceed with our project that we're working on now. And then, yeah, we're just, I don't have an answer for where that's at right now. But eventually there will be trail along Park East Boulevard. That piece was supposed to be under construction in 2021, and we're going to do everything we can to keep it in 2021. So.
So are there any, that's all I have to report. Are there any walk-in topics or anything that somebody, hot issue they want to talk about that hasn't been covered that you want to share before we sign off? Okay, if not, I guess thanks everybody for coming. It's, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, David, everybody. Take care, stay safe.
Thank you, Margie.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
So we'll be in touch. If I've got any, updates or things that you guys need to know, right away, I can share those.